Do I share it in my wall, right?
What's that?
I share it in my wall, right?
Yeah, you
Um,
can. You can go to my page. It's on there now, and you can share it. Yeah, directly to your page. Yeah, it will. And then after the show, I'll when I set it up, I can't tag you, but after the show, I can tag you. So, welcome everybody to the live and the replay. This is a very, 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 very special show, or I should say, my. I was going to say my native tongue, but it's not muy especial. But this is Monica Ramirez from South Texas, McAllen, Texas, right on the Mexican border. My family's from, and I'm from Corpus Christi, Texas, which is 2 hours north. It's pretty much the same area. Anyway, she reached out to me. I was very excited about it to see somebody, a homegirl, hitting me up, a cuñado. And so, yeah, we just, sometimes you just got to follow the signs and jump on the horse and give it a shot. That's what we do here at Soulogy. Spontaneous, intuitive, creative, imaginative, and depending on what we're talking about or doing, courageous. I will say we are getting suppressed quite a bit. I have been mentioning that if you could share to one page or one group, that'd be great. We will. I just got off the phone with Marina Govier, who is our webmaster. Our website is pretty much ready, and we will be originating our shows from that website and also multi-streaming on the platforms that we're on now. But yeah, so we won't. We'll always have an alternative. People will be able to go to the website. They'll be able to see the schedule. They can get reminders. I mean, there's some things that'll alleviate the suppression that we're going through. I'm going to play the intro real quick. So we'll be back in a minute, 19 seconds, and we'll get to know this beautiful, beloved sister. Uh, and in Spanish, you would say hermana hermosa. I'll be right back. Hang on. There we go. It's exciting to be here with Monica. I don't normally read bios, and she didn't give me one. But I was on her page because I had to send her a message to tell her I was going to be late, as I do with a lot of the people that come on. Uh, so she's well versed in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, body language. That's a new one. I haven't heard that one. Not in the context that you're using it. BQH, which is the same thing we
it's,
did
be-
the other day,
it's
right? With
before quantum healing, basically, it's hypnosis therapy.
yeah. That's by with Candace, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because we did a live one. I don't know if you saw that. We did a live one in two parts over 2 days. We did a BQH session with Marilyn Biggers. I don't know if you know her, but she was the practitioner. Multidimensional energy healer, life coach, channeler, and artist. So, welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so nice to be mixing energy and code with somebody who can relate to where I spent, I don't know, what did I spend? Probably a collective 25 years of my life in South Texas. And it's a really interesting area because South Texas is, I traveled a lot in New Orleans, I would say, is another place like that where you have this melting pot of multiple ethnicities. And a lot of people might think that Mexico and South Texas, where you would have Caucasians and you would have Mexican people or Mexican Americans, but there's more to it than that. There's a lot of Asian, there's a lot of German, Czech. There's also a lot of Spanish. My mother's family is some of the earliest Spanish Texans there were. So there's a lot of mixture there. There's also the mixture of the kind of what would you say, Monica, like the very, very devout Roman Catholic. Like we're talking like major guilt trips and confession and 10 Hail Marys and 5 Our Fathers. So there's that aspect, but then there's this other aspect that's pretty big in the Hispanic community where we come from, which is family and an openness to what some people might call magic or occult even. And I'm talking about the curanderas, my grandfather's sister, who I knew when I was a little kid, was supposedly the most, well-known curandera in the Corpus area. I mean, she had politicians and, just a lot of people would go to see her. Interesting. But there's an interesting mix, isn't there? And now you said you've lived in the States for 23 years and you lived in Mexico the rest of the time. So there must be a pretty diverse path that you've been on. In terms of like what's brought us together here at Soulogy over the last few years, the ascension, divine union, sacred sexuality, galactic communion, angelic, interactions. When did this all start for you? Because I can't imagine that you started in Mexico or even in South Texas and McAllen, and you weren't really indoctrinated in the early years in the Roman Catholic Church.
Oh, yes. I studied with nuns, in fact. My family, it was very Catholic. And obviously in Mexico, we're all mixed. We have different, I do have Jewish DNA that for a while I actually became Jewish. After I left the Catholic Church, after studying all the religions and like, okay, trying to fit in, I went into the Jewish, and then I did not find what I was looking for. My family come from a family of healers. My grandmother was Huichola from my father's side, and she heals a lot with herbs and so forth. She actually saved the life of my dad several times with tuberculosis and an appendix with just herbs and oils, basically.
So let me ask you this, and I want you to keep going because I just want to, if something comes up, get a little bit more explanation before you continue. So you're from a family of healers, and let's start with your grandmother. How does someone like your grandmother know what to do?
She was an Indian Huichol, and it comes from our ancestors. They used to heal with herbs, with the egg, and with all that. Now it's the Santeria that now it just went dark. Let's put it like that.
It can be dark. Let's put it that way.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, because I was telling you that I used to I had an office in Harlingen, which is right down the street, or right 10 miles, whatever, from McAllen, and years ago. And so we were building houses, and we had to sell houses, and we had to get people to talk to try to sell the house to. Well, I hired a woman to manage that office, and I was told by this very patriarchal company, don't hire a woman to be the manager, but I did anyway. And but she used to get, and she practiced Santeria, but she wasn't dark. And she used to get that powder with the chicken feet, and she'd put it all over the steps. And sure enough, we'd get 2 sales that week. You know what I mean? So go ahead. I'm sorry.
When I grew up in Veracruz, Mexico, there is about 10 hours away from where I was living as Catemaco. Catemaco is very well known because they do international conventions of witchcraft. And it is very, very strong, the dark magic and witchcraft over there.
Yeah.
And young age, when I was around 21, I learned to differentiate, because I believe I always work with energy and my guides and so forth. And I learned to differentiate the thin line between both of them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's free will, it's respecting the free will.
Yeah. It's
And
not interfering, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the tiny little line that is there, but people just overstep it in that way. And I that's why I'm not so I don't like to even do kind of that it's so external. I'm not too ritualist.
Yeah.
I my sister, she's also, she's a medicine woman. She's very ritualist because she's more into the tradition of American Indian and Mexican Indian tradition.
Yeah.
I try not to fit. Now I try not to fit in one little square
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
one square. That's something that I have learned with the time I have passed. I don't like to be called shaman or new age or any kind of religion, and that's why I've been getting outside of those squares all my life. And I don't want to be in one, because that's limiting for the human being.
I love that you're saying that, because it really applies to um, all of us, especially now when it's so open, and we're all getting something from what we once thought was outside of ourselves. So we're galactic and angelic and elementals and whatever. And Morgan says this a lot, has over the years, you know, uh, like the over identification with uh, a particular modality, or something like Santeria, or it could be a lot of things. It could be Reiki, it could be anything, or an over identification with a past life or a certain connection that you have. Why would you want to limit yourself? That's what she says, exactly what you said. And I think that's really great advice for all of us as we go forward, because we have to stay open.
Yes, and we let ourselves guide. Actually, we know exactly what to do. Humans put too many rules and regulations to
Mm.
everything. I am a Reiki master, so I go at the beginning. I used to do my healings only through Reiki, and even if I was hearing, "Hey, don't do that. Go and do something different," I was not listening to myself.
Mm.
And even if I am NLP or I work a lot in theta level, that was
Hmm.
before I was BQH, the hypnotherapy. Even I started letting myself guide. And
Yeah.
even as an artist, that I've been an artist for 37 years. I
Wow.
exhibit all around the world and so forth. I learned all the rules so I can know how to break them all.
Yeah. Yeah, we're actually we are very much alike. Is that I don't want to get off subject, but is that some of your work behind you?
Yes.
Wow, that's really it's really powerful, because when I first before I said anything, when you first got on, I was thinking, wow, that's got like a blend of like the Mexican Indian culture. What do they call that? I don't know what you call that. I know it starts with a T, but I can't remember. But it's got like a blend of that. I can see that in there, along with other things I'm more familiar with. Yeah, very nice. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You. And yes, and just right now, believe it's very important that the human being is part of the message that I receive all the time is to actually start listening to ourselves.
Yeah,
And if we start following only one rule, like Reiki or just NLP, or I, I'm not against or pro of the. I love Dolores Cannon.
yeah,
She's, and I have read many of her books and all her videos. She taught a lot, and thank God I chose BQH with Candace, because
yeah,
I'm free and I can mix all the tools I have learned.
yeah. It's that's what I understand. And she talked about that on the show that we did, where we did the two parts of the. Well, one part was kind of an intro. I don't know what you call it, but anyway, she came on. She explained to us that BQH nothing, because she loves Dolores like you do. She just said it allows you a freedom to use whatever comes. And I've listened to quite a few practitioners especially over the last couple of years, that have come on and they've said, it used to be this way. Every time somebody came in, I did this, A, B, C, D, but now they come in and every one of them's different. It's like whatever I know to do. Now, you said something that you said I wasn't listening to myself. And I'm not taking shots at anybody. I'm just trying to learn. And a lot of people will say my team. Do you feel that what we've been hearing is ourselves, or is it something that's like you're there and I'm here? Like we're two different, you know what I mean?
The thing is, a while back, I came to understand the blending that we doing with everything around us, everything inside of us and everything outside of us. It's just a part of us, and that's how actually I understand source. In fact, I don't see them, I don't see it or her or he or whatever you want to call it
Yeah.
outside of myself. My
Yeah.
higher self is connected. It's the same energy of source.
Yes.
So if I see it separately or my guides separately, completely outside of myself, then I'm not being blending with them.
I got you. So
And
it's no different than if you see me as separate, right? I mean, it's really not, which is, and I don't want to talk about this because we've been talking about it and everyone's talking about it. But even like what the, what, let's just say the two presidential candidates represent, not as people, forget the names, just as energy. Like I see the value of what's happening where we can look at one or the other, or maybe even both, and go, I don't feel like that's me. So now I can go work on myself until I can bring some equality, you know what I mean, to that.
but at the same time, everything is projection of us. So it's teaching us something,
That's
and
right.
it's making you react. Anything is, you just have to dig it in,
Yeah.
and you can find what is exactly the other person showing it. We
Yeah.
can't make change anything outside of us. First,
That's
we have to do it inside so it can be projected outside. If we really want to do the change in the world,
mm,
it's not the asking the world to change. We have to start. We have to do the job first. Us. How we want to say all Americans should be this way or that way when
yeah.
we're not respecting
Yeah.
we are here inside.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. I mean, to me, that's soulogy. It's like it's only me, right? It's never them. It's always me. I want to get some clarification on what I asked you about your grandmother. So, how she knows how to do that, and whoever we're talking about, is it something in their DNA? Is it something that they get from their voice, or is it something that is handed down through her telling your mother and your mother telling you, generation after generation?
That's a sad story. I did not met her. She died before I was born.
Wow.
But and it was with my dad. She's the one that raised my dad because
Mm,
the mother, my dad died when he was 1 year old, so she raised him. And and unfortunately, my dad was more a business person. That he was a believer, but he tried to follow the rules in the Catholicism and so forth, and they tried to suppress that. And unfortunately for my mother and my dad, we they have two energy workers in the family, my sister and me. Even if they knew how to manage energy, my mother, in fact, she knew how to call us just by our thoughts before the cell phones exist.
wow.
So she wants us, and but also that can go into the dark side too.
Yeah,
You
of
cannot
course. Of
manage
course.
it. Just call me because, or let me manipulate you just by mind.
Yeah.
So we also know now for us it's very easy to detect those games
Yeah.
because we can see them have done to us since we were little.
Yeah. This is really you're muy simpático. You're smooth. Um, yeah, but like so we're talking about, for instance, we're talking about La Santeria or a curandera in the family, or whatever you want to call it, and how it can be used one way or the other, and the thin line you're talking about. But in reality, what you're saying too, which I love, is it actually applies everywhere. You know,
Mhm.
in my relationship with you, like if for instance, or let's just use two people, the two between two people, if there's a development of trust to a certain level,
Yes.
that's a lot of power and responsibility, and it's still the same loop. You can take advantage of it. We've all done these things, and I love what you said too about it's becoming easier to see these things, which is what a lot of people have been talking about this year on the show. And the question is, what do you do with that? Do you say something to the person? Do you not say something to the person? You know?
I I am the people when they get to know me or they love me or they hate me usually. And I am too straightforward. I teach people how to see these games
Wow.
and how to observe them when they are doing it too. That goes with the responsibility.
That's pretty cool.
People are not aware when they're manipulating other people. And
Yeah.
the people that knows the manipulation, sometimes they know when they're falling for it or when they're playing it. And if we want to take over responsibility, we need to observe these games. So that's why I teach people how to see them too.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. I've obviously I'm married to a very accomplished practitioner, and I've been around a lot of them with the show, and I've been exposed to a lot of modalities, but I've never heard somebody say specifically that I teach people how to recognize the unconscious programming, which could be manipulation or whatever it is, agenda in others, but also in myself.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool. Is that something that you came up with through your own connection with infinite intelligence, or were you trained on that, or was it like a combination of everything?
It was I had to draw, thought. I was very sick playing these games, and I got really. I had hmm,
Right. Go ahead.
I had lupus. I had lupus. I had about that was 15 years ago lupus, and it came with a bunch of sickness,
Wow.
fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, horrible depression, and then at the end I was having epilepsy, and uh, and my life was depending on someone to drive me back and forth. And my ex-husband, and he hated to do that, and I was depending on someone, and I always been very independent.
Yes.
So if I want actually to heal myself, I have to learn why I provoked that that's all those sickness in myself. And I had a button of auto destruction, basically, and I click it. So that's what the lupus was gonna do to me with all those sickness and the depression and so forth. And I'm not talking about simple depression. I'm talking about really deep
Yeah.
in the hole,
Like suicidal.
totally. And I was taking antidepressives, prednisone, and a bunch of medicines. And when I could not get up anymore of bed, and I was so depressed and suicidal and in pain and swollen and so forth, that's when I remember my higher self. I had a dream that I just wanted to die, but I did not have the guts to actually do it. And my higher self took me to a dream and told me, okay, you can jump to a different reality, or you can just go back to your bed and everything is going to be exactly the same. And I was really, really, really tired of my life. And I remember having the fear in my dream to jump into an abyss, because I felt like I heard that people, if they died in their dreams, they would die. That was another program. And I remember it's like, I'm tired. And I just open my arms in my dream and I jump into the abyss. And after that, everything was different. I
Wow.
different timeline. I was in a different body because I start getting better and better and better.
And that's a serious, I mean, that's a serious illness, lupus. Like
Yes,
I've known quite a few people, and I've only known a couple. You and I can think of another lady. She's actually a friend of mine. Going to be on, I think Friday. That's a powerful thing. So you were in this dream, and this just goes to show you dreams are real. But you're in this dream. You're conscious. I'm tired. I don't want to be here anymore. Your higher self says, well, you can jump off this and go into the abyss and go to a new timeline. And you can go back to the way you were. And you jumped off. And everything changed after that. Wow.
yes.
That's powerful.
That is something that after that I became more fearless
Yeah.
because I came to understand that if I have to jump into an abyss to have a better reality and actually be alive, I just have to jump in. There's no other way to actually affront fears. In my perspective, in my experience, for everybody is different. But in my perspective was just you have to dive in into the fear sometimes and that can change it. And of course, that's when I have to learn how to I have of course coaches and I have teachers that when I was learning NLP, I had an amazing teacher in New Zealand. And it was in that time it was online when no one was doing online. That was before the pandemic, of course. And she had to learn also how to transmit a class online for me because I was over here in McAllen and she was in New Zealand. But I really wanted to fix myself first. That I in that time I was not even trying to help anyone. I was just trying to be alive and to be happy to be alive and reprogram my brain again and
Mm.
believe in magic, believe in me. And that went to a process of the really dark night of the soul, dropping all the medicines like the dream because I don't suggest the doctors don't suggest this to anybody. They told me you need to top it up. I did it. I just cut all
You
the
just went cold turkey.
yes, and I throw everything in the trash, antidepressives, prednisone, everything,
Wow.
and uh, and trust. Really have faith that I was gonna be fine, and work with all my depressions, with all my monsters, for all my and start observing the games that I was playing.
Wow. Wow. So wow, this is so fascinating. So I met a lady, a friend of mine for years now. She was a very, very heavy heroin addict. I think heroin and meth for like, I'm talking like 15 years. And she had something like this happen. Now, she wasn't in a dream, but she quit in one day, like just stopped. And anyone that knows anything about heroin addiction, I have other friends who spend 30 days foaming at the mouth and throwing up. I mean, it's not a pretty thing. But I never discussed with her the internal thought process when, because she was on the show years ago and she talked about it that you're talking about now. So you threw everything away. You found a new timeline. You have a certain level of fearlessness, and you start to, I guess, you start to analyze yourself.
Yeah.
And this your dark night of the soul?
I had many. Don't think it was one.
Yeah.
I don't think I am and completely fearless. No, if I find a fear, I just affront it. That's the only difference. I am in the same process as everybody else. You know, it's like if I have ascended, probably I would not want it to be into 2020 in United States. You know,
Yeah.
a bad idea.
The
but
circus.
but but obviously I'm still working on it. And yes, I had many dark night of the souls where I have to affront myself and
Yeah.
I have to be responsible every single thought in an emotion that I had. And of course I started in that time I was meditating 4 or 5 times a day.
Wow.
And I became pescatarian because I love fish. I grew up in Veracruz. uh, but um of course now is way less that I meditate, but I can connect myself way faster. I can listen to myself. And it was a process
Yeah.
in believing in me, in believing in that actually I was not crazy like everybody were saying in my family or my ex-husbands, of course, saying that Monica's too crazy because I always been channeling. I write poetry, and of course, that poetry in Spanish, it comes now. I understand perfectly that I always have come from my guides,
Yeah.
my paintings. How do I do an original work? It's gonna come from my guides. I'm channeling,
Yes. I
and
get.
and when people do not understand the painting or the poetry, they will judge. They're very fast to judge.
Well, you're with you're with family here. Everybody's can relate to that here, that we're crazy and being judged and all that. And then of course as well, these are people who have followed that guidance, and regardless of what people said, they still did what you did, or what you're doing. Wow. Did you when you were transforming, did it ever come to you, the was there a connection, or were you told there was a connection between all these shadows and unconscious programming and your illnesses?
Oh yes, I come from a Mexican family, like we mentioned at the beginning, and good Mexican part of the tradition is good Mexican families. They only can they have to be married. A woman alone is not gonna be well taken care of. Single mom, oh my God, and divorce. So, like I mentioned, also I hate rules.
Yeah.
So those, of course, my poor dad. I bet he cried many times with me. I I've been married 4 times. I don't follow rules. I am very loyal, and my values are very very strong. And I judge myself, and that was even before I wake up. As I judge myself, I judge others too.
Yeah.
So of course, but at the same time, I was not an awake. I wish I was a awake woman then,
Yeah.
because then I will have higher standards for myself.
Yeah. Well, and I was telling somebody this today, or yesterday. In the last 2 3 days, I was shown I'm very much like you, right? So I'm probably, instead of jumping into the abyss in a dream, I did it plenty of times in the physical world. And but so I wasn't reflecting. I was being shown by my guides, or whatever we're going to call that. I never can figure the word to call that, I love what you said about hearing my voice. So I was hearing my voice, and it was showing me uh, the things that I did and the value of them, and it took me into a place of loving and appreciating them all on the same level of everything else. And that, like the apparitions coming to me, or different things that would consider paranormal or supernatural. Yeah. So I'm happy that you went through all that, because otherwise you wouldn't be here in the way you are. And you're amazing. You're absolutely amazing.
Thanks, Dad. I do have to say I been adoptee. I started in Veracruz, but by different beings. That was in Veracruz about 25 years ago, and the last one was about 3 years ago. But those were for my family, of my soul family. That well, I,
Let's talk about this. This is awesome. Okay. So I get what you said about the difference. Now, 25 years ago, no, let me say something first, and maybe you can talk about this first or not, or just go and talk about what happened 25 years ago. I've always, I'm a big history buff, especially years ago as I was growing up, and geography and so on. And of course, being a Mexican American, especially when I was young, I was very proud of it, and I learned a lot about it. But I've always been amazed at how Mexico can be such this huge country, and it's right next to the United States, which has military bases all over the world and all these other countries. And yet Mexico always has this independent, very much like your own spirit. Like, it doesn't follow rules. You don't even have one government. You have all these little governments all around. And I've always wondered, there is there a higher, um, intelligence as in, let's say, Star Family or ET, that doesn't allow the United States to go into Mexico and do what it's done around the world? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Huh, that's a very interesting question. Where I grew up, I was around 300 zones of archaeology zones. A lot of them they were not even open to the public. But I always loved archaeology. That was another of my passions, and so I knew where they were, and I even opened a travel agency, and I only took spiritual people to those zones because they were not open to the public. They still belong to the people.
Wow.
And it always fascinate me that for many years, I don't know, it's still happening because I've been here 23 years. At 7 o'clock at night, everybody knew that the UFO was going to land in the Sierra, in the mountains.
Wow.
And that was, I don't know, it's still happening now or not. They have discovered some caverns that they have a lot of hieroglyphs of.
Yeah.
They're not even Aztec. They're literally ETs in that area where I close by where I was living. But the ones in that time that I encounter, or in the one that paralyzed me, and I have my experience, they were the grays.
The Grace, the little Grace.
Yes, and of course when that happened, I tried to tell everybody, and I say, oh, they're incubus or they're demonics or things like that, and I didn't know better. I didn't know nothing, so I shut up for many years until I start having regressions and in hypnotherapy, and I even talked with Mary Rockwell,
Oh, Mary Rodwell. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
she.
I think she's talked to everybody on the face of the earth. Everyone that comes on the show says, I talked to Mary Rodwell. She really helped me. I love that lady. Go
In
ahead.
fact, in one of your shows, I start having downloads of those memories when you
Oh
were
my gosh.
there, and
Yes.
I even mentioned it there because after that, it's like I have to have a regression, and then more memories came, and the last one it was from my guides. That was the more helpful one. That was about 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, when they took me to a spaceship here on top of my house, here in the valley,
Wow.
and they show me there were different beings, and they show me their how they vibrate. Because I asked what I'm doing here, like it was I was in my desk, and suddenly I was in the ship, and it's like, okay, what am.
So you were at your desk.
Yes,
You were at your desk like right now, like awake, and the next thing you know, you're in a ship.
yes.
Wow.
And I asked, well, why I'm here. It's like, because we are gonna be talking to you more often, and you're not gonna be able to see us right now because you need to trust more in yourself. While you trust more in yourself, you're gonna be able to see us. But in the meantime, you need to feel who it is next to you. So we are presenting with you, so like that you learn the imprint of the vibration or the energy of each one of us. And that was very instructional for me. And then again, I was here, so I do feel them all the time when they're around me.
Yeah, I'm wondering about this too because I get everything as okay. Everything outside of me is the universe, and then there's the physical and the non-physical. Let's just say that. Uh, and then like last night, I watched that movie, The Phenomenon, which is about Star Family and ET and UFOs and ET encounters. And I think now there's a space in between, and in the space in between, there's the physical ET or Star Family. You know what I mean? And there's us, right? And it's like to me, there. I know that like, well, in other words, it's more like me and you. You're there, and I'm here, and there's a physicality to it. But there's something about how close, and I'm talking frequency and feeling. They seem to be getting closer and closer. And I don't know if it's a they or if it's something that we're not seeing with our eyes that's coming into focus, but there seems to be almost like the next step. And I'm not sure if that resonates with you. You can add something to that.
I I know we're multidimensional beings
Yeah.
living experience as a human, but as multidimensional beings, there's an aspect of us that is already in a ship right now, that is
Yes.
a Syrian or Pleiades or Arcturian or whatever,
Yeah.
or different dimensions. Because at the same time, we're in different dimensions. Time
Yes.
does not exist; it already collapsed. That's how I feel it. As my experience. If I want to change something in my past that I did wrong, I just have to go to that emotion and change it from my past. And I do a lot of it, my healings when my
My
clients.
God, you're the Mexican Morgan Lee. You're saying the same thing she's. But this is fascinating because there's a literal existence or a literal experience. I see you, I shake your hand, I give you a hug, I give you a kiss, whatever. And then there's the communication and communion that we all have with what we can't see. Now, now you're talking about having an encounter with uh, with these aspects that have a physicality. And I can relate to this, and I'm going to ask you a question with this. So I think you may have heard this. I've mentioned it on a few shows. So 2 years ago, we connect every night, and that night, the room filled up with about eight star family. Now they were all humanoid. They were translucent, so they were just like this, but you could see through them. They were all humanoid. They're all translucent, and they were all different. There wasn't all the same species. And in this case, they were all masculine. Okay. Now I'm on the bed facing Morgan, and we have our hands together as we were instructed. And two of them came behind me and walked into me. Right. I could feel them walk into my back, but I also knew that it was okay. There was no fear. It was. About 2 months later, I was in Houston, and they came in, and they said, well, the tall one was a Syrian aspect, you, and the shorter one was an Alpha Centaurian aspect, that's you, and you just basically were conscious of the embodiment of them within yourself. Now, I guess where I'm asking you is, when you went up to the ship 3 years ago, do you see those as aspects of you, or you had mentioned earlier soul family?
There's two things in there. I do feel that there's an aspect of me right now in a ship, and I can feel her, and I can sense her, and I can even talk to her. I know she's not my higher self.
Okay, that was my next question.
There
Yeah,
is a oversoul and on top of us, and that is the connected with source. But but she is more advanced because in all these things, because she don't have all the programs of the human beings.
sure. Yeah.
So it is we can consider her as a higher self, but there is something more on top.
Yes.
Like our other aspect is Maya. That's my higher self. That what I call her my higher self.
Okay.
That she's on top. That she is actually not being a humanoid. She is actually more an aspect of light. And then, of course, there's one aspect that is a Pleiadian. Is a Pleiades woman that is female, that is
Hmm.
in one of the ships on top of close by. But also, she gets advices and guides from Maya at the same
Yes.
time.
Yes, I get that. Yeah, I get that.
And
Yeah, that's
so
powerful.
we're and if I want to connect, I've been working a lot to embodying all the beings of who I truly am,
Yeah.
because I believe that's the next step for the human being, to embody totally not only their highest self, I'm talking source.
Yes. I
So
agree with you. I agree with you. And there seems to be, uh, and maybe because I don't think like I'm special at all. I think, in fact, take me out of it. When something happens to somebody, that tells me, and I've learned a lot of this watching Morgan, because Morgan will get things early. So something will come in and she'll integrate it, and then 3 or 4 days later, and she'll tell me about it. Everybody's writing about it. You know what I mean? It's like she gets the wave first, but there seems to be something about the um, the physical aspect of embodiment. You know, it's one thing to connect and say merge in dimension or jump into the abyss when you're in a dream. You know, but it's another thing to have a physical aspect merge. And I remember, like, years ago, in the first couple of years after I rewoke, I had three spirit guides, and they were White Wolf, White Owl, and Running Bear, and these were father, uncle, and brother in a Native American life. Well, one night I went to the bayou, and all these all these beings in hoods, they all came. They were all standing there, and I'm like going, "What the hell's going on?" And they said, "Stand up," and I stood up, and I looked at my arms, and they went and they turned into wolf arms, and then they were bear arms, and then owl wings. So I get what you're saying, and what I'm wondering is, do you think we'll see more of that happening, like what you're talking about?
I I know our ancestors used to do it, and I'm talking about the natives,
Yeah.
the shapeshifters, and people have put too many connotations of shapeshifters in the dark way.
Yes.
We are so tend to create more duality in the fear because we don't understand some things.
Yeah.
And we're talking about shapeshifters is not necessarily draconians and presidents and things like that.
I know. I
I'm
know.
talking about becoming a wolf or becoming the eagle, becoming the ant or becoming the hummingbird. And all of them, they have lessons to teach us. The
Yeah.
only way we can communicate actually with the birds or whatever that is around us, that is bringing us a message, is we have to blend
Yeah.
with them and softly. Yes, I feel that this is going to be happening way more when
Yeah.
the people start trusting and taking that fear out.
Yeah. It sounds like, I love this conversation. It sounds like, oh, okay. For instance, too, I want to offer this up for clarification and even validation. And I know I've talked about this before. Not everybody's seen every show because there's been 2,400 shows, but I've watched Morgan. I've watched her turn into many things: goddesses, Egyptian goddess, Indian goddess with 8 arms, dragon. I've seen her hand on my chest be a dragon claw. So I really believe what you're saying. And I guess I want to follow up on what you're saying. It's almost, well, I don't know if it's almost, it's like it's our belief system. That's it. It's our belief system. That's the beginning, that's the end of whether or not we experience these things. That is, to your point, were things that were handed down to us from our ancestors, the indigenous and the aborigines and the Maori and the Dogon and all that, right?
Exactly.
So it's just simply a belief system, right?
They did not have the limitations that we have in these times. The limitations for us right now in this duality is, and I believe that is completely going to disappear when we go to the different octave or the different dimension. That is, there is no such a thing of separation between us.
Yeah.
If I don't think I am more special than anyone.
No.
Oh, we have the same capacity to do the same things and more. All of us. It just our limitations are the ones that are not letting us
Yeah.
get there. If we are continue seeing this is bad, this is good, this is ugly, this is pretty, this is, if we start judging everything around us, everything inside of us and in other people, we are putting the divisions. No, that hummingbird is making too much noise and it's bothering me and so forth. Yes, you're making the division between the hummingbird and yourself. But how about if you can Go and center yourself and try to be the eyes of that hummingbird.
Yeah.
Try to be the wings of that hummingbird. We can do that. We have that capacity, all of us. I'm not saying that I have converted a hummingbird, but I can sense any human being. I can connect with any human being in any part of the world. And I have connect with trees.
Yeah.
I can communicate with animals. I can, because I can hear them. And we all can do that if we empty ourselves and
Yeah.
our ego, we put it in the side.
I think the problem is, and I see this comment from my dear sister Allison. It must be easier to believe and have no limitations when you've been raised in that environment or had a relative that can talk about it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I see a lot of this type of comment in the lightworker community. Even if somebody, let's say I'm clairaudient and I can hear things. I've seen a lot of people who have gifts and abilities like that, who look at other people who have different types of gifts and abilities, and because of our programming, we say, "Oh my God, I can't do that." It's almost like we're saying I'm lesser than. You know what I mean? I guess what I'm trying to say is the conditioning that we've all gone through is so deep and so subtle that it's still there. I mean, the truth and the skills and the ability and the higher sensitivities are still there, but there's all this stuff on top of it, and it's so deep that we don't even notice it. And I think we're starting to notice it. And I think that by talking about it like this is how it starts to unravel. You
Yes.
know, because I look around and I see. I got frustrated tonight. I got triggered tonight, and there was a. How do I explain this without without putting my foot in my mouth? I saw this gathering of contemporaries, and there was a part of me. There was a program running that said, "Why aren't you there?" And I knew that there was a message for me. And it ended up, a long story short, being a program that I'm never good enough, that I'm dirty, that I'm not clean, that I'm to this or to that. I'm not like those others over there. And it just made me realize, like, where did that start? Like, and I'm immediately taken back to like 5 years old, 6 years old, you know? So I don't know. I really feel like that the more we talk about this stuff, and the less we talk about the distractions and the distortion and the elections and the mask, and we talk about what we have that we innately know we have and that we have in common with each other, that more people will step up.
We forget, and I say also for me because I do that mistake too. Uh, but I do conscious that I need to master. It's something that I have to master. Every time we speak, we're creating our reality,
True.
and if we think we are less than someone, or we're not enough for this, or we're not light enough, or so intellectual enough, or whatever it is, and we actually speak about and say it, we
Yeah.
are actually programming and creating our reality.
Yeah.
I've been taking, I just started taking a class with a coach of business, and
Mm.
in the spiritual world. Rosalind Fong, she's amazing. But it's not about just the business side. What is been helping me? It was in my limitations like that.
Yeah.
Why I can survive as an artist or as a healer, and my therapist. And I've been teaching class. I've been teaching classes for art classes for 20 years. Even blind people how to paint, and it's still they pay me miserable because I did not saw my worth in money.
Yes.
Or we have this tendency as healers then saying, "Oh no, money is not important," but actually it is because it pays the light.
Yeah. I
It's
know. Believe me,
if it's our
I'm scraping together rent right now. It's due
so
tomorrow.
in this class with her, the other day I discovered and that one of my blockages, even if I got money, I sold a painting and so forth, and I got money, it didn't was not it just disappeared as fast as it came, it left. But then I came to and working with her, I came to understand that where it was my block. And it was just a matter of thought, a program, an old program that I had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it was, they told me, if you have money, they're not going to love you.
Hmm.
So you, that was the program. So it was easier if I wanted people to love me if I didn't have money.
Yeah.
And when we start observing our limitants and why we don't think we belong to that group, why we don't think we are gonna be invited. I was so afraid even to tell you. For years I've been following you that I wanted to be in your show, but I
Hmm.
did not felt that I was enough.
Wow.
I did not feel
You're
that I was worth
you are you are phew, I don't have the I don't if I could think of the Spanish word that described it, I would. Of course, all the things I know are very no. Uh, so I'm really intrigued by the what you were saying earlier about growing up in Veracruz and everyone knew that at 7 o'clock the spaceship was going to land, and about my own intuitiveness. I'm going to call it intuitiveness. I know there's something going on in Mexico because it's one of the most richest countries in the world in terms of resources. We're talking oil, we're talking, you got all that coastline, some of the best seafood in the world comes from the Yucatan side. It's just incredible. Gold mines, I mean, but how, and the United States being so imperialistic and conquering literally all over the world. Yet Mexico, even if you go back to the 1800s and the 1700s, the Mexican country, like so I always thought there's got to be an ET or something that's you know really in charge there, or whatever the case is. But anyway, back to what I was saying and what you said too about your abductions or visits, and even what I mentioned. It to me it feels like that the Star family. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're from the future." I mean, I feel like they're from our past. Like they planted us here, which would mean they would have come first. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's I'm curious as to what you think. That Do
yes,
you think that we'll see more open, not just discussion, but uh, sightings and more involvement in our story when it comes to um, when it comes to Star Family?
yeah, definitely. I do feel them, in fact, on top of my house sometimes,
Hmm.
and I can feel I can feel them. I've been told by them, that was the other question that you asked, that more that I believe and trust that I can see them, that's when we're gonna be start seeing them.
Oh,
And it's just matter of us in believing how much we're gonna believe in them, in ourselves. And because I do feel them when they come. I do feel them when they're talking to me. I do not see them right now, but I do feel them.
yeah,
I can feel the vibration. Even my cranium sometimes crack of
yeah,
the pressure that is in the room, and I do feel all that. And yes, I have asked them. I don't. They don't want to just present themselves and as the rescuers of the human beings. They have done that mistake many times,
yeah,
and they don't want to do that again.
yeah.
Our responsibility to rescue ourselves is going to
It's
be
time to
us.
grow up, isn't it? It's time to grow up. And it's time to grow up on an individual level. It's not a time to go, oh, we all need to pull together and we all need to go march and protest and we all need to like stand up to the government. And it's not like that. It's like we need to grow up ourselves, right?
Yes.
like what you did, like what you talked about. And you had lupus, and I know what that. I've never had it, but I've had friends that have had it, and it can be brutal. And
Yes.
there's so many other things, like your, I guess your immune system goes down or something because there's so many other things that happens to somebody in that condition. Yet you came out of it. You came out of it without, uh, you came out of it without blaming anyone. You came out of it doing shadow work, basically. You
But
know.
I don't come out blaming anyone because or else I go back sick. Because
Yes.
it's a game. And
Yes.
the moment I yield someone, I go back to that game and click the bottom again of auto destruction. Because I created that sickness on myself. I am responsible of attracting that. And the bottom line, it was because I wanted to destruct myself. And the lupus, if we go to the root of every single sickness, there is this book of Luisa Hayes, you can find it too, How to Heal Yourself. Uh,
Oh, I think Morgan has that. Yeah, you're the Mexican Morgan.
it is a magical book because
She has that book.
if you go back, actually, what is lupus? Lupus is an immune system that is actually is destructing your main organs. It's attacking your main organs in defending your body. It just attack your heart, your lungs, your liver, whatever they decide to. For me, it was my nerve system. It was attacking my nerve system, and I was bad. And so, and if you go actually understand when I got it, I was living in a marriage in that time where I was getting beat the crap out of it all the time, and they broke my uh, right wrist, and so I don't paint, and and it was bad 5 years that I chose,
Yeah.
and he just was an amazing teacher. Now I see him.
Yes.
Because if I carry with the resentment and the hatred and whatever, I go back again to getting the sickness that
Yeah.
I fight so hard to let go. So he was just a teacher
Yeah.
for me.
Far.
And
I mean, this is. I mean, I hear this, and I have for 5 years. In my interactions with Morgan. I mean, and some of this I've come to on my own, but it's the same. There's something about that. Okay, so because you've been in this community a long time, and we all know that the women have been leading the way. And I just find so much clarity in their stories. Like I might have gone through something like that, and I was in a difficult relationship, and I did give my power away, and I did it out of love for my kids and for my marriage and for what people thought and all that other bullshit. But when I hear the story of particularly feminine, uh, okay, I'll be done in 2 minutes. Uh, there's something about the clarity. It's like somebody put a new set of glasses on me. Like what they've gone through, and they describe what they've gone through in the physical, from an energetic standpoint, it just means so much. And I'm so grateful for it. We're out of time. I've got to go help mi esposa hermosita. Oof, oof, she's hot, man. She's hot. Muy caliente. Muy caliente. She's a what is it? How do you say? Oh my God! How do you say? Uh, White witch?
you see in Highlander.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hey, listen, I want to talk to you real quick. I want to thank you for coming on. But can I just holler at you real quick? Don't hang up. Don't hang up. And I just want to ask you a couple of things. I've got to go help her. But thank you, everybody, for coming in. If she's up for it, Monica, then she'll be on here much more. I just want everyone to know that. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but thank you, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Hang on.